So I thought Jayananda Prabhu's disappearance day was a few days ago, but apparently it's today. And so I wanted to speak a little bit about him, or a lot about him. But I don't have my normal setup, so just give me a moment to, I have to raise my computer up a little bit. Hold on. And my internet connection also. Maybe unstable, yeah. We are not fully prepared yet. So we're in the process of becoming fully prepared. Um, One second. We had spoken about Jayananda yesterday, so some of you have heard, but I wanted to turn this into a conversation about what I personally learned from Jayananda and what we can all learn from Jayananda. What do you think? Good idea? And then we'll see how long that goes, and then we can resume the regular class. That's my idea. So I don't know if you've heard me say this before, but I said it's very nice to have a devotee mentor, but in maybe a different way than this devotee personally mentoring you, but being mentored by their example. And so mentored by their example means you're in a situation and you're maybe not, you're tempted in one way to act improperly, or you're not acting properly, and you think of this person and you think, what would this person do in that situation? And I have to admit that Jayananda is one of my go-to people for this situation. And if I'm in a situation where maybe I have to make a decision, or I feel that maybe I'm about to do something improper, or I do something improper, or what I think is improper, and then I think, well, what have Jayananda done in that situation? And so this class is going to be a little bit around that idea. And so if you like, you can use Jayananda as your go-to, what would Jesus do? What would Jayananda do? WWJD. What would Jayananda do? So Jayananda, you could not be with Jayananda if you glorified him. If you glorified him, or if you glorified him, he would say, no, no, and he would glorify you back. He would always say, no, no, Prabhu, I was genuine, it wasn't artificial. But for us, if you have a friend who doesn't glorify you, well, they're not such a good friend. I need the friends that, praise me and honor me and respect me. And that's normal for conditioned souls. But for him, if you did that, he didn't like it. For us, if someone criticizes us, we don't like it. For him, if you praise him, he doesn't like it. So um, I think that's something to meditate on, don't you? Like something important we can consider. I mean, it can't be artificial, obviously. You can't say, Prabhu, you're no longer my friend because you're always honoring me. And, I don't have friends. If you honor me, you're not my friend. But it's a principle that if you don't honor me, maybe you're not my friend. If you criticize me, maybe you're not my friend. Uh, I push you away. Um, he liked that. Another thing in this vein, similar to this, he didn't like to be praised, but generally people who don't like to be praised like to praise others. That's where they get their bliss. It's not from being praised, but it's giving praise. That's what, just like people who like to serve, they get their bliss from serving, not from being served. Correct? So Jayananda would sometimes be working on something, and there'd be some very young devotee, and he would say, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? So he respected everyone, even like they were superiors, even though they were younger than him or younger devotees. So um, you might say, well, that seems like a lack of self-confidence. Doesn't even trust his own intelligence. He has to ask a new devotee. And that could be, but it wasn't for him. Could be for somebody else. But for him, it was a symptom of there was no false ego, no false pride that he would ask anyone, well, what do you think? I'm thinking about we should do it this way. Well, what do you think? New Bhakta is like, no, no, whatever you think. No, no, what do you think? I want to know. I want to yeah, maybe I'm not doing this right. So, you know, in a sense, he was like the opposite of your normal person. Of course, your normal person isn't so normal, but he was like the opposite of normal. And so, what can we learn from Jayananda? Well, we can learn that I think a lot of our normal behavior is really bad for us. And his abnormal transcendental behavior, which is hardly seen anywhere, is would be very good for us, don't you think? Yeah. So I don't want to make you feel bad for being normal, but normal is pretty bad in the material world. So in this context, it's normal to have people that respect and honor and praise you. Why would you want to be around anybody else? You know why he didn't want to be praised? I think he was so attached to Prabhupada that I think he felt that if you praise him, it's like taking away praise from Prabhupada or taking away praise from others. Like he just wanted to see others praised. And so, it's like if you want to give prasadam to others and people give it to you, no, 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 let's give it to others. I don't want it. It's like that. Like, no, no, don't give me the praise. Let's give the praise to Prabhupada, or let's give it to these other devotees. That was his pleasure, but that was also where his heart was at. That's just how he was. And so if we ever seek praise and honor, think of Jayananda and think, what would Jayananda do in this situation? I'm in a position where I am being honored, or I'm in a position where I could be honored, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm expecting it from others. WWJD, what would Jayananda do? He would give it. He would give it. And he would, it's like the devotee said, like, if you wanted to associate with Jayananda, you could not glorify him because it's like, no, I don't want to be around you. Wow. Interesting. I only want to be around people who glorify me. And he doesn't want to be around anyone that glorifies him. WWJD, what would Jayananda do? Hmm. It's very powerful. I've used this when the worst gets me, my worst potential gets me. I think, all right, what would Jayananda do? And if you don't know what Jayananda would do, I'll give you a hint. He would, if you're, giving into your anger or whatever you're giving into right now, and you're thinking, what would Jayananda do? Even if you don't know what he would do, you do know what he would do because he would do the opposite of what you're doing or about to do. So you can just know that. Like, I'm really frustrated here. I'm really, whatever. What would Jayananda do? Um, my connection is not good. Okay, hold on. Oh, yeah. I wonder why. I'm connected to the internet in the house. The internet down here is not even showing. Okay, let's try it again. Bugs in the internet. Okay, this is a better connection. Yeah, we'll see how long it lasts. I thought I had it connected. Yeah. So what I was saying is that you might say, well, I don't know what Jayananda would do. I was never with him. You can just understand whatever you're challenged with, and you maybe are being impelled to do or say or think the wrong thing. Just understand he would do he would do the opposite. Um, Jayananda was a selfless person. So being as selfless as he was, he didn't like things for himself. So he just he 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 didn't think about self-sacrifice. He just liked serving Prabhupada. That was his nectar, was serving Prabhupada. And we as ordinary mortals of this world, unlike Jayananda, who's transcendental, we look at the difficulties within the service and say, "Oh, I don't like the service; it's difficult." But Jayananda didn't look like he didn't look at it that way. He looked at it. This is service for Prabhupada. This is ecstatic. That's like he could do austerity like nobody, but for him it was bliss. It was just this is service to Prabhupada. This is what I love. This is what I want to do. So, um, I'll tell you a little shocking story, which I think will help us in the WWJD department. He had been working all day on the Rath Yatra carts, because that's, the Rath Yatra time, that's his main service. Goes for months working on the carts. They had been working all day, like from like 7, 8 in the morning or 4 in the morning or something like that. So the devotee's telling the story, said, Jayananda, it's like 4 o'clock. I want to go to the feast. It was Sunday. And Jayananda said, why do you want to go? I said, well, we've been working all day and I'm hungry. And Jayananda said, stop thinking about yourself. Think about service. He said, but what about prasadam? Jayananda said, don't worry about prasadam. So that was Jayananda. It was like his nectar was service. It wasn't about Am I hungry? Am I tired? You know, when he was working on the Roth carts, you know what his bed was? He put down somewhere, some 2x4s, put them together and make a bed and sleep on the bed, sleep there without a blanket. And that was like, his ecstasy was to serve Prabhupada. And they would have to guard the carts, and he would have to wake up at 11 o'clock at night, go to bed like 9 or something, wake up to guard the carts. And he was sleeping, and the devotee said, Jayananda, it's 11 o'clock, time to get up. And he said, 11 o'clock, why? Well, he didn't know. He said, to guard the carts. And he said, oh, to guard the carts. And he said, why didn't you just tell me it's time to guard the carts? I would have just woken up. It's like service, it's just like, and he said, well, I didn't want to wake you up, Jayananda, because you were sleeping. So I was just being kind of subtle. He said, no, you just tell me it's service and I'll do it. So he was very attached to service. He was so attached to service that thinking about himself or thinking about what service he was doing, it was just service. It's just, this is service for Prabhupada. That was his nectar. Like, he was described that he really liked prasadam, and he always made sure devotees generally had a lot of prasadam, and he liked to eat a lot of prasadam. And yeah, I saw that. And so devotees would say Jayananda was really enthusiastic about prasadam, like super enthusiastic about prasadam. But the reality is, he was super enthusiastic about everything. Like, how we're enthusiastic about prasadam if it's like really good. Oh, they're serving this subject with curd and kafta and this and that. And you're like, yes. And he was like that with everything. Even with the austerities and difficulties, he was like, Krishna consciousness was everything. And his faith was 108%. And he would often say, I'm really fallen, but I have faith in the holy name. And that was one of his mantras. You just need faith in the holy name. He had deep faith in Prabhupada and deep faith in the holy name.
Jayananda Prabhu.
Carlos,
Hi.
silencio, por favor. Gracias. Silencio por todos. Clase ahora. So he used to say, I have deep faith. I have faith in the holy name. Like when some devotee had difficulty, he would always be just have faith in Prabhupada, just have faith in the holy name. Everything will come like this. He had 100% faith. And it was just, so he had so much faith and so much love for Prabhupada. He just loved to do anything. And if anyone was like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, why it's too hard to do this. He was like, no, this is service to Prabhupada. Don't think of yourself, you won't be happy. So, yesterday I told the story of Jayananda stealing pants, and I have more details. So he found the cheapest, worst pants in the store, and he was forced to buy them because his other pants or trousers were like, they were so bad and so dirty and so holy and so full of grease and oil. The temple president gave him money to buy new pants. He said, "You got to buy new pants. These are what you're wearing is horrible." And he went in the store and he looked for the cheapest, worst pants, and the devotee he went with also got him to buy some thongs. Thongs cost like $1, and maybe in those days 50 cents. You know what thongs are? They're those the simplest sandal that is that you can buy. You know, they cost like nothing. It's just a piece of rubber. You know. So this devotee convinced him to buy the thongs. Saying, "Okay, I'll get the thongs." Well, first he said, "Jayananda, get some thongs." He goes, "No, these thongs I'm wearing, they're okay. They've got 3 months more life in them. You know, thongs are like when they wear out from the top, not just the bottom, the top, and then they get holes in them because they're just little rubber, you know. At least when I was a kid, they were, or even until recently, I don't know how much they cost. They used to cost like $1. That's the cheapest shoe you could get." He says, "No, I have 3 more months on my thongs." "No, Jayananda, these thongs are useless. Get new ones." "Okay, okay." So then they find like the cheapest, ugliest pants they could find. And then Jayananda says, "I can spend the money on the tongs, but I can't bear to spend the money on the pants. It's just, it kills me. Krishna's money, I can't bear it." He said, "I'm just going to put them on and walk out the store." The other devotee said, "All right, whatever." Transcendental repossession, we call it. Everything belongs to Krishna. Transcendental repossession. We're repossessing. We're repossessing these pants from your store because actually they belong to Krishna. And you've artificially taken them. That was some devotee's mentality in the early days. So so he walks out the store and he gets caught and he has to go to court. No, he gets caught and the police take him in and he said, "I am a monk, missionary. $10, if we had $10, I could distribute, that would pay for 3 Bhagavad Gitas, or I could distribute food. I just couldn't waste the $10 on myself." This is what he told them. And as soon as he got caught, he said, "You caught me. I did it. I'm guilty." You know. So he was honest. And so then when the cop went to court, um, and and the cop was in court, and Jayananda was explaining to the judge that I'm just a monk and I don't want to spend the money. And the judge said, the only thing I can do with this person who's such a saint is just ask him to pay for the pants. And then the policeman said, "I'll give half. He's a saint. I'll give half." And then Jayananda gave 5. And so, Hare Krishna. So when you're spending lots of money, wasting money on this and that, like we all do, you can think of Jayananda, who'd rather wear a pair of torn up, oil-stained, paint-stained pants rather than spend $10 on the least expensive pants he could find in the store, because he didn't want to waste Krishna's money. Hare Krishna. When you're not enthusiastic, when your service is difficult, think of how Jayananda was just so happy. He was just happy to have service. Sometimes I'm like, "Oh, too much service." Um, Today I have like I didn't look at any messages for like the last day and a half on my phone. Plus we had Vyas Pujas, so then everybody says something. So I have this long list of messages. And I was looking at it and I was thinking, well, it's better than no messages because this is at least some service is there, right? So that's how he looked at it. It's not like this is difficult. This is service, not difficult, it's service. There's a difference, right? Maybe the service is difficult, but it's service, and the service is blissful, even if it's difficult. And so I was listening to one devotee telling stories, and tell a story like one story they're going somewhere and they get a flat, this is an old car. Back in those days when we didn't have much money, cars were not well maintained. So they had an old car and the trunk of the car, I don't know what you call the trunk in your country. That's the back where you keep your extras. You call it a trunk or what do you call it? Stu, what do you call it in England? You have some different name for it? The back, where you put everything in the, what
Yeah,
do you
the
call
boot. The boot.
the boot? The boot or the trunk? We call it the trunk, you call it the boot. I don't know why you call it a boot, because what? You put boots in it, I guess. I guess they used to put boots in it when it was like a horse, riding their horse. I don't know. So, the trunk, it was opening, the door was opening, and then they got a flat tire, and then they went to get the spare out of the trunk, and the spare tire had a hole in it. And Jayananda said, "Oh, wouldn't you know?" Like, and going somewhere important. And he didn't freak out. He didn't get upset. It was just, "Oh, wouldn't you know?" That's how he took it. Like, he never got upset. He never criticized anybody. He never had tantrums, screaming. None of that. It was just like, "Oh, wouldn't you know?" Hmm. And then they're working on the Rath cart, right? It's the night before Rath Yatra. They put the canopy up, and a storm comes and knocks the whole pole down. Like the night before, the whole canopy falls down. And what do you think Jayananda said when that happened? He said, "That's it. Never doing Rath Yatra again. I'm out of here. You guys take care. It's finished, fried, toasted." No, he didn't say that. He said, "Wouldn't you know?" It's like, it's just the night before Rath Yatra. It's like, this is a perfect time for the canopy to collapse, isn't it? Like, wouldn't you know? It's just gonna, like, it's just the way it is. So he like stayed up all night fixing it. And there was a lady across the street in an apartment who was watching it. And she said, "I saw that canopy came down. I was crying. My heart was broken because I've been watching you guys work on this cart for 3 months." She came the next morning and told him that. She said, "And I was just watching you all work together so well. I was so happy watching you. We'd stay up at night drinking coffee and watching you on the Roth cart, and our heart was broken when it." Anyway, that's a little mantra we can all say, when things go like, "Wouldn't you know?" Your best friend who you're expecting to come take you to the hospital for your operation, that you have to be there an hour, and 15 minutes before the operation, he calls you up and says, "Sorry, I can't take you." Wouldn't you know? That's Jayananda. Because, for him, the world was not centered around him and what's good for him and what he likes and like that. Right? So he could say that because it was like, otherwise it's like, it's like the night before Rath Yatra, the canopy falls over, the structure that's holding it up breaks. Why me? Why did this have to happen to me? What did I do to Krishna? What are you doing? That would be the normal human response, wouldn't it? Yes. I must have chanted some bad rounds today, and Lord Nrsimhadev was not happy with me. Yeah, you'll think of a million things, Maybe I shouldn't have yelled at my husband. That's why it happened. And, well, my husband wasn't a nonsense. I wouldn't have yelled at him, and then the canopy wouldn't have fallen. This is all his fault. Yeah, you ever go there? I'm giving a hard time to the women. All right. Well, we can give that to the men also. It's my wife's fault. Probably more common. But anyway, he wasn't like that. So wouldn't you know? That was just like the way he responded. So that's another WWJD, wouldn't you know? Huh. You know, the husband works all day, he's just like suffering at the office, getting chastised. And he comes home 3 minutes late, and his wife says, "Why are you late? Why are you coming home late? You didn't call me." Oh. And he's like, "Oh, wouldn't you know?" This is just the way it is, the way the world is. Hare Krishna. That's a difficult one to follow, but something to consider. And another devotee was saying that Jayananda asked him to do something, and the way he did it, it was kind of weird. It was like he was asked to build something functional, but this devotee was an artist, so he kind of made it a little less functional and more artistic. And, it's like, okay, I have to use this as a functional piece, and you're making it look like a, exhibit for, in front of an office building or something. And the devotee said that Jayananda looked at it and said, something like, "Oh, good job, interesting." He said it would never discourage anybody. You ever discourage somebody? Why'd you do that? You're so stupid. What's wrong with you? If you had a brain, you'd be dangerous. Or as we said as we were kids, where'd you get your brain? In a Cracker Jack box? Because they used to have little caramel popcorn called Cracker Jacks, and they'd have little prizes in it. So you get the box, so that was our sarcastic way of making fun of our friends. Where'd you get your brain? You have Cracker Jacks in England or something similar? Yeah, it's like sweet popcorn with peanuts. Yeah, but
Yeah,
you have prizes in it in the box.
crackers.
Yeah. I don't think the British would be so sarcastic as us Americans to say, "Where did you get your brain in a Cracker Jack box?" But you know what I'm saying? It's like sometimes when someone does something foolish, we're like, "Where are you? Like, what's wrong with you? What planet do we say these things, right? What planet does this guy live on?" Things like that nature. So Jayananda was never like that. He was always encouraging. Inspiring, encouraging. Yeah. It's not easy, is it? It's not always easy to be encouraging, is it? Especially when someone does something technically, objectively speaking, stupid or very wrong. It's hard to be encouraging. So he was like that. He'd be very encouraging. Very good job. Thank you for doing that. Let me show you how it needs to be done. Just got to do it a little bit like this and that. So there's no negativity. And then you understood, oh, I did it wrong. But he didn't chastise me. So um, when you're about to think or say something derogatory, think of Jayananda. Oh, very nice. Thank you. Let me help you. We can make it a little better. Any of you out there sarcastic? Raise your hand if you're sarcastic. Yeah. Think of Jayananda. Yeah. Yeah, sarcasm it's Krishna describes in the Gita the qualities of the demoniac person. One of their qualities is they're insulting. So naturally, someone who's a saint is not insulting. He's encouraging. Yeah. So I told the story yesterday, and I've told it before about Jayananda in the hospital with leukemia. And he was maintaining his sadhana somehow or other. He was maintaining better sadhana than probably all of us while he had leukemia, about 6 months to a year before he was dying. It was like, wow, but better sadhana. We're healthy, and he had better sadhana in the hospital with leukemia. So what do we learn from this? We learn that there's so many things that could potentially discourage us. That there's so many excuses we could make for being discouraged. Think of Jayananda in the hospital, getting up at 3 a.m., doing sadhana all morning and preaching in the hospital with leukemia. When you say, I don't have good sadhana, I can't do much seva. He's in the hospital dying and he's got better sadhana than us. Like if anyone has an excuse for bad sadhana, well, certainly he had it. And look what happened. Wow. You can all say, wow, that's amazing. Isn't it? I think that example, I think of that a lot. The WWJD, if I think something's difficult or I have an excuse for bad sadhana, I think of that. Yeah, you get lazy, you have excuses. I can't do this and that. Yeah, think of Jayananda in the hospital. Maybe someone should paint a picture of that. Jayananda in the hospital, like in a hospital gown, with a clock that says 3 a.m. sitting on his bed with japa beads. Wow, make a poster of that. That would be beautiful, wouldn't it? Have any artists out there want to do that? Chat GPT could do it. Just say Jayananda sitting on a bed with beads in his hand, chanting with a clock that says 3, and see what you come up with. You come up with something, we can put it out there. Say, if you ever have difficulty doing sadhana, remember Jayananda, chanting japa at 3 a.m. His body overcome with leukemia. Wow. Now, it's like, who can imitate this, right? But we can't imitate it, but it's an inspiration, right? I don't want to make you all feel bad. Oh, I can't even get up till 6 o'clock. Oh, I feel horrible. I want to kill myself. No, that's not the purpose of this talk. Didn't, but it's to get some inspiration that even in that condition, he was able to do it. And he wasn't complaining. So this is another, any of you complain at all? You ever complain? Yeah. I think complaining is like, you know what I think about complaining? I think complaining is self-abuse. That's what I think. Because it's so bad for us. It's like we're abusing ourselves. Yesterday when we were coming back from where we had the Vyasa Puja, we're coming back and we were saying, if you had friends that talk to you like you talk to yourself, what would you do with those friends? You'd probably never want to talk to them again, right? Isn't that interesting? You have friends and like, oh, Mahatma, you're this, you're that, you don't do this right. What's wrong with you? You know, it's like, leave me alone. You know, you wouldn't want them. Um, why aren't you friends with someone? Because all they do is complain about me, right? So complaining is, it's very difficult to live with that. So if I believe, even if we're not complaining about ourselves, which we do, but we just you ever like to be around someone who complains? It's difficult, isn't it? So I was thinking about complaining. I was thinking, oh, so if I'm always complaining about whatever, me, other people, the weather, whatever it is, it's just like, it's like self-destructive. It's because it's so negative. And you never found Jayananda complaining, even when he had a reason to. Like, if I said, Chaitanya Dasi, we're working on the Rath carts. Well, that's not a good example because women can't do that. Okay, Stu, we're working on the Rath carts, and your bed is going to be three by fours on the cart. That's your bed tonight. What about a blanket? We don't have any. Stop thinking about yourself. This is service to Prabhupada. I was like, okay. You know that story about, the story every 10 years, they allow the monks take a Mauna Vrat, vow of silence and everything. Every 10 years, they allow them to say something. And so after 10 years, they say, okay, say something. And the monk says, the bed is hard. 10 years later, the food is bad. And they say, all you do is complain. Never heard that one before? Yeah. But it would be natural, no blanket, sleeping on a wood. And then Jayananda, for his pillow, he took a seat. There was a seat. I guess he took the driver's seat or some seat out of the van and put it down. That was his pillow. And that's how he slept. It's like, Hare Krishna. So, if we had to sleep like that, I think we'd be complaining, don't you? What do you think? I think we'd be complaining a bit, right? So again, he was like, this is service for Prabhupada. And so he was just happy doing service for Prabhupada. And so that's why he didn't complain. So this one is really, I think is really important because we were talking about appreciation yesterday, and we were talking about appreciation in the japa, the online japa course, level 3. And complaining is pretty much the opposite of appreciation. And so we were talking about how valuable appreciation is. And some scientists say appreciation changes your brain. Actually, neurologically, your brain changes. I think your whole body changes. So obviously, complaining is the opposite. So this is really, Jayananda is our savior. When you feel like complaining, WWJD, what would Jayananda do? You can think of Jayananda happily sleeping on 3 pieces of 2x4s. It's 4 inches wide, 2 inches thick, and they're long. He's sleeping on 3 or 4 of those when you want to complain. I mean, there are things to complain about, that's for sure. But somehow or other, he didn't complain. So when you feel like complaining, think of Jayananda, and then also know he didn't complain about his body. He was like, with the body, like, whatever. Why, he got to the point, why maintain it? It's just a botheration. So somehow or other, he was just grateful to be Prabhupada's servant. Yeah. So I think that, to like kind of put everything and mix it up into one country, you could say, he was very enthusiastic all the time to be engaged in Prabhupada's service. And he did so many different services, from direct preaching and Sankirtan to driving the Sankirtan vehicles to cooking to, back in the early days, selling incense to support the temple. Before that, driving a taxi, give money to the temple. It's just like, this is such a good example that he was so enthusiastic for devotional service. It was like it didn't matter what he did. It just, like, everything he did was he just liked it, whatever it was. Is that because as I was saying, he just loved Prabhupada. So he loved doing service. So these are some ways I find Jayananda to inspire me. If hopefully these memories will inspire you in similar ways. So we can feel like you can feel like Jayananda's with you. When you remember him and remember his qualities and take inspiration from them, then you can feel that Jayananda's with you, and you can ask yourself, when you're dealing with something difficult, you can ask yourself, what would Jayananda do in this situation? And try to imagine how he would deal with it. It will give you strength. Hare Krishna. So I saw there's some comments or questions. This is from Debija. Thank you for the topic of WWJD. I am wondering how Jayananda Prabhu would feel about the movement right now, as it is quite different from when he was a devotee. Yeah. I think he would be completely dedicated to making the movement better. And I think for any Prabhupada disciple, when we see things different from the way it was during Prabhupada's time, it hurts because we feel like, well, where's this going? Where's this going to take us to? Slightly different, but slightly different over 10,000 years becomes more than slightly different, becomes very different. I can't imagine that Jayananda would ever be antagonistic and uncooperative, as some devotees have become. I think he would be very dedicated to making ISKCON better. I think he would be a real force in neutralizing complainers. Of course, when I say complainers, I mean complaining which is not fruitful, which is not valid, but just general bashing of the movement. So I could imagine he would ever do that. Not a million years could I imagine him doing that. But Kaylee, many devotees have said that all the devotees who left before Prabhupada left are kind of looked upon by God brothers and God sisters as somewhat, in a sense, more fortunate than the ones who remained, because they got to leave the world while Prabhupada was present, so they never experienced having to live in separation from Prabhupada. So many devotees felt like, well, it was a blessing, although they died young and we didn't want to lose them. It was a blessing because they didn't have to experience the pain of separation. So I think when Gopal Krishna Maharaj died, I was thinking, like every time a great devotee leaves ISKCON, it's like you can feel something was just pulled out of ISKCON. Like part of ISKCON is gone now, like it's missing. It's like it was like a necessary part of the structure. And now you've pulled it out and the structure is not the same. And so, these great devotees, they contribute to our movement in special ways. And when they're gone, that contribution, that personality, their influence, those of us who had their association, we feel that separation. It's like a light that's not there anymore. It's like, okay, this light has left the world, and now in its absence, there's just darkness. Where he was going, giving light everywhere he went, he can't go anywhere because he's not here on this plane. And so now there's this absence of light. You can feel it. So we feel his separation, but we also feel happy that he could leave before Prabhupada. But I think Krishnajan Swami, a great saint in ISKCON, Jayananda, and we've lost so many devotees now. And you can feel the loss. You can feel ISKCON is different without them. And when Gopal Krishna Maharaj left, then I started thinking, okay, so every year a few Prabhupada disciples are leaving, 2, 3, 4. But every year it's going to increase. And eventually it's going to get to the point where it's going to become so common, it's just kind of like a permanent state of lamentation that we're just losing. Because it's going to, 10, 15 years from now, it's like most of them will be gone. That's the age when you leave your body. if you even make it that far. And so most of us joined at the same time, at the same age. So most of our godbrothers are within like, most of my godbrothers, majority are either a year younger or 1 or 2 years older. So, it's all going to be around the same time. And we're going to feel it tremendously because there's so much light that they give. And it's like, like when Prabhupada left, we couldn't conceive of an ISKCON without Prabhupada. We just thought, although it wasn't logical, we thought, well, Prabhupada's never going to leave because Prabhupada is ISKCON. You can't have an ISKCON without Prabhupada. And so when Prabhupada left, there was this big shadow, this big emptiness. It's like, how can you have an ISKCON without Prabhupada? It's like, so when Gopal Krishna Maharaj left, I started feeling in a similar way. I think, oh, like, how could you have an ISKCON without Gopal Krishna Maharaj? It's like, that doesn't make sense. And now he's gone. Like, how could you have this whole part of the world that he managed and he's gone? And it's just, you don't have that anymore. Then I started thinking, but that's going to keep happening. And you're going to like all these people that are like the pillars of ISKCON, one by one, they're going to go and it's going to be a different ISKCON. And so, in a sense, those leaving early have less, it's better because they will not have to see all their godbrothers leave. And they will not have to live in an ISKCON without all the Prabhupada disciples. You unfortunate younger people will, along with all the craziness of Kali Yuga. And then, so all we can do is then take these examples of what these devotees did and how they lived their lives, and then try to be like that to make up for the loss. So maybe Gopal Krishna Maharaj is gone, but maybe 5, 10, 15, 100, 1,000 of his disciples, they embody his nature, his mood, his expertise, and so on, so that you don't feel like he's gone. So then it's like simultaneously one and different. You feel like he's gone, but at the same time you don't. Like you feel Prabhupada's gone, but you have so many disciples of Prabhupada, they remind you of Prabhupada. So, and maybe, some devotees think, Kaylee, that maybe Krishna was just like merciful on Jayananda, that he did not have, that maybe, I think some devotees felt like I don't know if he could have bared the separation of Prabhupada. And so maybe Prabhupada just let him leave first, so he wouldn't have to bear that pain. It's possible. And, who knows? I don't know what was in his mind. I don't, but I do know he would have definitely continued serving Prabhupada. He knew what Prabhupada wanted. He knew Prabhupada's heart. And if a disciple knows the heart of the guru, then when the guru leaves, they'll just keep going. No matter how difficult it is, they just keep going because they know this is what my guru wants. And whether he's present or not present, I'm going to do what he wants. And if we don't even do what he wants when he is present, then what are we going to do when he's not present? It's that much harder, right? And if the only way we can function normally is in his presence, then what are we going to do when he's not present? So Jayananda was really, he wasn't a devotee who would like, when Prabhupada came to America, who would just like travel around just to be with Prabhupada. Even when Prabhupada was in the temple he was in, he was never with him. Like, you see all those morning walks. You ever see Jayananda there? You never see him there. Why? He just like wanted to do service. That was his connection with Prabhupada. So I think, he would have kept that connection no matter what. I think we can understand that. He would have kept that connection strong. He would have been okay. I mean, none of us were okay. It was difficult. Devastating, for sure. But specifically those who had a connection with Prabhupada based on service, they just continued their service because that's how they felt closest to Prabhupada. So they just did what they always did. And they got Prabhupada's association the way they always got it, through seva. Is that okay? Yes, okay. Chaitanya Dasi says, from the example of Jayananda Prabhu and other such transcendental personalities, we see that they blissfully sacrificed their health and well-being for service. Oh, we had this question yesterday from Kaylee. How do we understand those examples from the perspective of self-care? How do we follow them without imitating and burning out? Well, in a sense, you just answered the question in the last sentence. So I'll reiterate my answer. I began answering this question by saying, well, something I didn't say. One devotee remarked that Prabhupada's bhajan was preaching. Like you have your bhajan, that's your personal sadhana, your chanting of japa, your studying of shastra, your attending of artis, and the association you get with devotees, is your personal bhajan. Then you have your preaching and your seva. Of course, your preaching is your seva. So you have your seva. And for the preacher, they're speaking, teaching, that's their seva. So this devotee said, Prabhupada's preaching was his bhajan. In other words, that's what gave him life, and you could see that. You could see that Prabhupada was very anxious to preach, and it gave him life. Personally, he'd like to do it, but more so, it gave him life because it was fulfilling the desire of his guru, and also because of his compassion. It was enriching him because he was relieving the suffering of people. So that's one answer, that sometimes your seva is your self-care. Like you need to do that, right? The other side of that is that to the extent that someone like Jayananda served, if like you're intimating here that if I or others like ourselves did that, we might burn out. So the answer is burnout however you do it. However you get there, you burned out. So Jayananda does A, B, and C, and he doesn't burn out. He becomes inspired. And Chaitanya Dasi does A, B, and C, and she gets burned out. But Chaitanya Dasi wants to do what Jayananda did, but she can't. So okay. So the real question Chaitanya Dasi is asking is that, I'll rephrase your question. If I compare myself to Jayananda and try to do, that's basically what you said, and try to do what Jayananda does, I will burn out. And the other half of the question is, but if I don't do it, I'll feel guilty for not doing as much as Jayananda does, right? I think that's implicit in the question, like I need to take care of myself, but I should serve like Jayananda, and I'll feel guilty taking care of myself because Jayananda didn't, and he was blissful. Yeah, and I think the perennial answer to this question is you're not Jayananda, so you're Chaitanya Dasi. Jayananda was like 6'6" or 6'7". You can multiply that by 3 and you get the meters. No, yeah, 3. So no, that's not right. You divide it by 3. So like 2 meters, and I don't know. I don't think in meters. I think in yards. But if I stand up and put my arm up in the air, that's how tall he was. So, that's like, well, no, maybe not that tall, but almost, yeah. He's very big. And by hearing about him, you can understand that he was an unusual person. and very transcendental. So I think right from the get-go, right from the beginning, there should be, it should be obvious that, well, I can't compare myself to this person, and if I do, I'll become miserable very fast, because then I will just fail in comparison to him. But what we're trying to do here is get inspired, and then you take that inspiration and apply it according to who you are, to see if that can push you a little further, not to his level, but to push you further from where you're at, without artificially trying to imitate and thereby neglecting yourself in a way that would have a negative effect on you, but would not negatively affect him. And in fact, the kind of thing that could have a negative impact on you may or likely did have a positive effect on him. So if you said, Jayananda, we brought you a mattress here, we're going to blow it up. He goes, no, I like sleeping on the wood. So it's like it's more sacrifice. It's more austerity. So he likes that. So if you say, how can I relate to Jayananda sleeping on wood? Because if I did, I wouldn't sleep all night. I'd need at least an air mattress or a thick camping pad or something. Okay, then take it. Just do it. But his bliss is the austerity. A question was asked yesterday because we were hearing about Jayananda, and someone said, are people born that way, or can we develop that? And on the level of Jayananda, I don't think you can develop that to that degree. You either have it or you don't. You can work with what you have, but if you don't start with this, it's like, can I become a millionaire with $1? It's going to take a while. If I start with 100,000, it's a lot easier. It's just 10 times, and I'm there. So, if I'm not born, like you hear these people sing, Idol or Britain's Got Talent, whatever your local show is, and these people come out of nowhere. Well, what's your training in singing? Oh, I just sing on my job. And then, they sing, and then all the judges, are rock stars, and this guy's singing better than them. And they're like, they want to quit being singers. He's so good. So, you can sing Chaitanya Dasi. So many of us can sing. And if we take lessons, we get better. Right? But we listen to that guy and we think, I'll never sing like him. I don't have that voice. I don't have that karma. But certainly if you take lessons, you can sing better. He just started out, he's an Apsara, so I can't compete with him. So it's something like that. And so we have to accept that. So then the whole comparison thing only works if you just try to improve yourself. But if you put other people who are beyond your pay level, and they'll eternally be beyond your pay level as ones you're trying to compete with, that's not good. But you can allow them to inspire you. That's different. And so, like, I want to be like this singer, but I can't. So either he'll inspire me or I'll hate him. And I'll hate him because I can't sing like him. Right? So obviously you don't want that. Yeah, it's important when we discuss Jayananda to take inspiration, but not think that what he was doing is the standard. Even if Prabhupada appreciated it, can't think, well, that's the standard for all of us, because then we might as well give up, because we're not going to reach that standard. And Annapurna has the same question. I knew these questions were coming, and inevitable, yeah. I knew it when I was talking about them, because by modern today's standards, Jayananda was a real fanatic in many ways. A grounded, mature person, but certain ways, it was like he was fanatic if he could make sacrifices for Prabhupada. Sacrifice his eating, his sleeping, whatever he could sacrifice, he just loved doing that. So I heard a strange story. Devotees were hungry, and he took out some grease that they greased the axles with, and he ate it. He goes, "Just take this as prasadam." I was like, "Oh my God!" And he was fine. I don't know. I guess it was edible grease or something. So a little crazy, eh? We're not going to imitate that. So this is something we've talked about before. How can you take inspiration without getting discouraged by comparisons? Just by knowing who you are and who they are, and knowing that you two are different. Then it's not a problem, is it? Shouldn't be. But when you think, yeah, Jayananda is 2 meters tall, more than 2 meters. No, maybe. Okay, 2 meters. Yeah. Yeah. So you want to avoid comparison and you want to take inspiration. There's so many people that can inspire you until the day comes when you compare yourself. Then there's no inspiration. The inspiration will turn into envy because you want to be like them. Yes? If one devotee said I should do a whole class on comparison. Comparison is like saying we're all supposed to be the same. Krishna made us all the same. And if you're not the same as everyone else, something's wrong with you. So, someone has a 205 IQ, one person maybe. So does that mean there's something wrong with you if you have 185? Albert Einstein had 185. Oh, something wrong with him. He doesn't have 205. He should be lamenting. And if Albert Einstein were lamenting, I'm so stupid, I don't have 205, you would think, yeah, you are stupid now. Now you really are stupid because you're lamenting that you only have 185. And so that's what happens with comparison. It's just it's negative. So compare yourself to your former self, like how you were yesterday. That could help you. Can you be better than yesterday? Uh, so to be just asking, what would Jayananda focus on? Exactly. Well, he was focused on Rath Yatra, and it's very possible he could have just focused on Rath Yatra and just traveled around and helped temples organize Rath Yatra because that's what he did. And so, if when your spiritual master leaves, whatever your service is, just get more into it. And that's why, or whatever your service is in your local temple, or the service for your guru, or whatever it is, just do it more and better and deeper. But that's what he would do, no doubt. He was Rath Yatra man. He would have made sure Rath Yatra was going on everywhere. He loved doing that. Chaitanya Dasi says, after hearing your answer, I feel like trying to imitate another service level is seeing service in a material way. Yeah. It's also maybe a product of our society, which is anti-hierarchy. Because hierarchy is bad, it's just like, we're all equal. Well, if we're all equal, how come somebody can lift 100 pounds and somebody can only lift 10? How come somebody has an IQ of 200 and someone has an IQ of 70? How come someone's 2 meters tall and someone's 1 meters tall if we're all equal? So we're creating an illusion of equality. Of course, we know You have this idea. Prabhu, you're a she. Don't call me no she girl. You think you're talking? You can't call me. Why not? You got all the qualifications too. It's not a bad thing. And so, really big. Like, I hate to break it to you, but if you have a job, you're a student. You're looking
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please forgive me. The sound went bad.
It sounds bad. Oh my God. Hold on. What about now? No?
Maybe now? Could you say something else?
Shadwaita Gadadhar. Okay. Like others. I don't know. Maybe Krishna didn't like what I was saying. So I forgot. Uh, uh. We were talking about comparison. Yeah, talking about hierarchy. So the word hierarchy it's not pleasing for everyone to hear. And so because of that, we're if you're trying to make everyone equal materially, then it makes you feel bad if we're all supposed to be the same. But when you accept we're all not supposed to be the same, and that's okay, because we have Krishna and we can serve him with whatever abilities we have or don't have, and whatever level of advancement we're coming to ISKCON with or not coming with. That's just a reality. Then we don't have to compare. It doesn't make any sense. Like, would you compare yourself to some expert in some area where you're not expert? Probably not. It would be obvious. Well, I'm not on that level. I don't have that natural talent. But basically, that's what we're doing. We're thinking, I'm supposed to be like this or like that. And that, the whole women, trying to be like men comes from that. Why can men get to do this? All right, we can have a men's liberation. Why do women get to have babies? That's not fair. We should be able to do it also. And, if we say that, you go, that's ridiculous. Yeah, well, why is it any more ridiculous than, you want to be like men? Well, it's the same thing. Why would you want to be like men if you're not? I mean, unless you are a man through and through in a female's body, but that's an exception. But because we think we have to be equal. And if I can't be this or that because someone else is this or that, then I become depressed. That's not smart. It's coming from that idea of down with hierarchy. Okay, ladies, you want to become like men? Well, you should get a job laying bricks because that's usually what men do. Then you can get a job as a mechanic, car mechanic, because that's usually what men do. And you ever see those guys washing windows on those big ladders on the 100-story skyscrapers? Well, you could get a job doing that also because that's what men do. Like, it's stupid. In general, I can understand some women want to do that because they're just male by nature, but in general, it doesn't work. As far as I can see, it creates problems. Then guys want to get married and they end up marrying men, or women want to get married and they end up marrying women. It doesn't work. Like, I thought I was getting a man. No, you got a woman. I thought I was getting a woman. No, you got 50% man, 50% woman. No, just be a woman. That's what you are. It's just be a man. It's okay. You don't have to. You know, a lot of a lot of expectations in marriages are the man wants the woman to be more like a man, and the woman wants the man to be more like a woman. That's also part of the problem. Here's a revolutionary idea. Ladies, instead of wanting your husband to be more like a woman, just have a few more girlfriends. They'll listen to you when you talk. They'll go, oh, that's so bad. I'm so sorry. Your husband's not going to do that unless you've trained him to be a good woman. But, you can't expect it, right? And same for the guys. Bianca says, feeling of comparison starts from envy, or envy gives birth to comparison, usually addressed. The envy we have is not for a devotee, it is towards Krishna. Can you help me understand this? I think it's, a lot of it is like you say, it's spiritual, but there are other factors, psychological and cultural, that feed into it, right? Because if you see human nature is that there's envy. Where Prabhupada says that, when Gandhari became envious of Kunti and she hid her womb, she was so angry. Kunti gave birth first. You know that story? Yeah. So Prabhupada said, look at these are great exalted women and still they're envious. It's just like human nature, right? So, but some cultures, envy is like more common. And I think those cultures where competition is encouraged, level the playing field is encouraged, everybody can become the best, which is not, in a sense, a bad idea. But taken to the extreme, it can create a lot of envy, because what if you try to be the best and you're not, and you should be or can be? How you're definitely not like people who are. Whereas if you told, well, Priyanka, you're to like whatever it is. Your nature is to make jewelry or something. You're good at making jewelry, and that's what you should do. But then you have all these other people that are like IT, mathematics, calculus, statistic brains, and they're writing software, and like, then you feel really bad if something's wrong with me because all I can do is make jewelry. So that's sad, isn't it? To feel that something's wrong with you. So it's that cultural thing, we all should be. All Indians should be doctors, engineers, lawyers, or motel owners in America. So, yeah, but isn't it? How many occupations do you have a choice for? Doctor, lawyer, MBA, engineer, anything else? Unless your parents are in some field and you go into that business. So I would not be a good doctor. I would not be a good MBA. I would not be a good engineer. And I'd be an okay lawyer, but I would have committed suicide before I finished law school, because for me, sounds really boring. So then I could, become depressed because I can't satisfy my parents and I feel like a failure because I can't do any of those four things. That's a lot of it where it comes from. Yes? You don't believe me? Watch the movie, The Three Idiots. It explains it all. And there's probably more movies. There must be more movies about this topic. No? In India? Yeah. It's so pronounced in India compared to the rest of the world. It's like, there's only one species in India. It's called an IT graduate. Everything else, loser. Right? So, you're very successful, what you do, but you feel like a loser because you didn't hit that benchmark. That's a lot of where it comes from. And I think another thing for us as devotees to consider, that Yeah, this is really the most relevant part of this discussion. A symptom of advancement in Krishna consciousness is like you'll be like Jayananda. You just love everything Krishna conscious. Like he loved to chant. He'd like just spontaneously would do kirtans like all the time. And then just chant and twirl around, and he could just chant and chant and chant. And he could just eat and eat and eat, and he could just work and work and work. He just loved Krishna consciousness. So that's why he was happy under a car fixing it. It didn't matter. Like he didn't need some, I'm just fixing cars. What's wrong with me? I've failed. It's like, so it's like when you feel satisfaction in bhakti and Krishna consciousness, then why would you be envious of someone else? It's only when you don't feel satisfied or you've been programmed into thinking you're less, something's wrong with you because you're not materially successful on a certain level. Then you're going to start being envious of people who are, because they've achieved what you thought would make you whole or good or acceptable, right? So if your whole identity is connected with this, then it's like, well, I'm not an engineer, so I guess I'm not acceptable as a person. I'm only a part of a person. And I always thought, personally, I always thought that is ridiculous. And fortunately for me, because I was convinced that was ridiculous, I'd see somebody, law school, in America. It's like, first you go to 4 years of college, then you do law school and, memorize laws and cases and this and that. And for me, I didn't think, oh, I'm a loser, I'm not a lawyer. I just thought, I would never want to do that. And I wasn't deprecating that occupation. I'd see people doing that. I go, oh, you're pretty smart, or you have a good brain for that. And I don't have an inclination. It didn't bother me. But if I was told by the culture, unless you're a lawyer or an MBA, an engineer or a doctor, you're a loser, then I probably would have felt pretty bad. Like, I don't want to be any of those. Well, something's wrong with you then. I have to get you tutors and private instruction and so you can become a doctor. Yeah, but I don't like biology and I get sleepy when I read chemistry books. No, you have to. It's like so obvious, isn't it? Like you have to study something that's totally, you don't have the capacity, the inclination. You just get sleepy and bored and frustrated and angry and depressed and overeat and oversleep and scream at everybody. It's like, I guess maybe you're not meant to do that. But how are you going to make money if you don't do that? If you don't have one of those 4 jobs, it's like, I'd rather live in a studio apartment than be a lawyer. I would have to get up every day and go to my office. I wouldn't want to get out of bed. So what's the point? And then we'll make you feel bad. No, there's something wrong with you. You need to be more responsible, more determined, to do this. That's not the Vedic idea. Krishna put Arjuna down. He wanted to be a Brahmin. It's like, forget it. You're not a Brahmin. Don't even think about it. You're not going to make a good Brahmin, Arjuna. You're going to get in a fight with another Brahmin and, beat him up. And that's not what Brahmins do because you're a Kshatriya. It's not going to work. Hello, it's not going to work. It was like, that's what Krishna was saying, isn't it? Like, Arjuna, how are you going to be a Brahmin? Like, what? It's like, you can't. Because you'll be forced to act like a Kshatriya because that's your nature. And so if you look at the Varnashram, it's not like, oh, I'll have to go to my therapist. Why? Because I'm a Shudra. No. I mean, I like doing music. Shudra. I like doing art. Shudra. I like acting. So sad. I'm a Shudra. I like acting. There must be something wrong with me. Right? Isn't it? So he's like dirty words, Shudra. All of you who like music, acting, and art, you're just a Shudra. And all of you pencil pushers, accountants, and software developers, etc. If you don't have your own company, you are Shudra. If you have your own company, you're a Vaishya. Congratulations. You've made it. You don't have to be depressed anymore. You can say I'm a Vaishya. Yeah. That's where the problem comes from. So then it's like artificially you're upset about nothing. You've been programmed to be upset, right? Priyanka, you were third in your class of like 14 million students. What's wrong with you? How come you weren't first? It's like, yeah, you can go, take psychotropic drugs for your depression because you came in third out of 14 million. Like everyone else would be happy. So it's how you look at it. Correct? Yeah, that's the problem. So I think the whole point of me saying this, aside from the fact that it just needs to be said, is that a lot of times we think the problem is spiritual when it's cultural. It's just like cultural conditioning. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm envious of Krishna. All right, I wouldn't be envious if I wasn't envious of Krishna. Okay, that's there as the overall understanding philosophically. But there's all this cultural conditioning that's causing this envy to blossom in all directions, which wouldn't be there. It's not just the spiritual problem. All the cultural conditioning is feeding the spiritual problem. So it's making you feel like, I can't just be happy hearing and chanting because I'm not an IIT graduate. Where's that coming from? It's not coming from your eternal conditioning. It's coming from your cultural conditioning. Mm. Mm. There is a male. There is, Priyanka, there is a male and there is a female. And if you're a female and you have to wear the hat of a male, all I can say is, it ain't gonna be easy. Yeah, it may be circumstantial, So like, what if you become the CEO of a company? Then one thing you could do is say, don't do it like men. Do it like a mother rather than a heavy macho guy. So you can, try to, and you'll say, but in the corporate world, I can't. I have to be aggressive like the men. And you say, yeah, but it's messing up all the women. Maybe you should just go home and make babies and don't work there. Be happy. Like, what a revolutionary idea. Women go home and make babies and don't work in the corporate world. Wow, whoever thought of that? Whoever thought of that idea was really smart. Right? Hare Krishna. No, but I don't want to just stay home and make babies. Yeah. All right, I understand. Maybe if I were a woman, I wouldn't want to either, but a lot of that is conditioned. It's not natural. It's just we're conditioned by it. But there's no men to marry. Why would I want to have babies with these guys? Are all bums. Yeah, that's okay. But it's still not natural. They don't naturally feel that way. You circumstantially feel that way. How are you going to live? My husband will divorce me. I'll have no money, But traditionally, it was like there wasn't divorce. And you didn't need that much money. And you had land. And, so now I'm forced to be like a man and fend for myself. And then my husband divorces me. Then I have to be the father and the mother. And it's like, oh, what a mess. Okay, to be continued. Can you save those questions? This class has turned into like a talk on Varnashram and Kali Yuga. And my dear devotees, you think Kali Yuga is bad now? You ain't seen nothing yet. The worst is yet to come. Just give it another 10, 20 years. Oh my God. You won't even recognize people. They won't even be human anymore. They'll be like have chips in their brains and they'll be living in virtual universes. Do you think it's bad now that we communicate on phones? Well, wait till the future. They won't even know how to talk to one another. It's going to be weird. Believe me, the powers that be that wanted to screw up the world, they're on schedule. They're ahead of schedule for screwing it up, as far as I can tell. Okay. They're doing excellent work in making us all crazy and hankering and lamenting and Hare Krishna, The solution, Priyanka, is just go out and freak your parents out and get some land and grow vegetables and chant Hare Krishna. And yeah, and they'll tell you, if you do that, I'll kill myself. You can't do that. You have to work like an ass to make me happy. You need security. Yeah. I'll have security and I'll spend all my money on my therapist. That's where it's going. Okay. We could go on forever talking about this. Hare Krishna. Thank you all. Jayananda Prabhu.